summoned many of the mentioned people here, including the cabinet secretary, some of the business people. We have also gone to the ground. Last weekend we were in Kitale, and we also went to Eldoret. We've gone to Meru, Embu, and many parts of this country just to engage with the farmers. Mr. Speaker, for the records, it is important for the House to know that the total number of fertilizers that were distributed in the year 2023-2024 was around 4.8 million bags. And year 2023-2022, 4.8 again, Mr. Speaker. The first bunch that was distributed last year that had no question was procured by KNTC. And the bunch that Mr. Speaker has brought attention of around 3,000 bags, being of not good standard, I would call it fake, was distributed by NCPD. Mr. Speaker, NCPD is a parastatal that is run by a CEO and is also run by a board. And Mr. Speaker, when we were following this as a committee, how, Mr. Speaker, do we get a manufacturer by name MEMS being given a contract to distribute fertilizer that he had not produced before, approaches a company called KL Chemicals and requests them to produce KL Green, and the formula given, KL Green goes to KEBS and also gets the approval. Mr. Speaker, after KL Green gets the approval, they do the first 50,000 bags that were of good qualities. And when you spoke to the farmers were happy. But later, NCPD again, Mr. Speaker, gives a contract to the same company, MEMS, that is not a manufacturer, it is just a supplier and a distributor, to distribute extra 500,000. So what happened, Mr. Speaker? As a businessman, people became greedy. And so the total bags that were distributed and that were on record by KL Chemicals, which is KL Green, was 69,000 only, Mr. Speaker. And remember, we have around 4.8 million bags that has been distributed in this republic. And so, Mr. Speaker, I would like this House to ask itself, who is guilty? Mr. Speaker, we may be a bit emotional. We may be upset because for sure farmers are suffering, Mr. Speaker. That's the truth. It is also important for this House to know, Mr. Speaker, that there is one fertilizer, which is KL Green, that was distributed through the government program. Then there's another fertilizer that is GPC that was done by a different company, which approached NCPD and requested them to distribute for them, not as a government program. This is where you saw, if people followed in the media, where some soil was mixed with some manure, and it was called organic fertilizer. So we have a chain here, Mr. Speaker. We have the NCPD, which is a distributor. We have KEBS. This specific Mr. Karaoke, who is the person behind the GPC fertilizer, when he asked him what he was supplying, he ashamedly told the committee to ask KEBS what he was supplying. So even himself, he didn't know what he was supplying to our farmers. Remember, this was not part of the government program. So, Mr. Speaker, as we prosecute this matter, and I have a lot of respect to my honorable member who brought this motion, I would ask honorable members to take time, allow the committee to bring a proper report on what happened. Because, Mr. Speaker, we have crooks as businessmen. These people should be named in this House, they should be shamed, and they should also be jailed, Mr. Speaker, for taking advantage of innocent farmers. Mr. Speaker, and I know many people here, they'll say, maybe the CS is arrogant, he's uncouth, he's not even qualified. It's neither here nor there, Mr. Speaker, because we pass the same CS here. But the question is, who gave our farmers fake fertilizer? Who gave? That's what I am not saying who gave, but the thing is there is KEBS. You allow me, Mr. Speaker. The NCPD, which is a government parastatal, Mr. Speaker, has a full board. It has a CEO. Does Linturi procure on behalf of NCPD? That's a question. Mr. Speaker, what is the role of the board of NCPD? What happens, and Mr. Speaker, I hope this House also can come out with a conclusive, finding, so that even NCPD, as a distributor of fertilizer, they are able to monitor what comes into their stores. Because there's also a company, Mr. Speaker, that should interest this House, that was given a license by KEBS to have the mark, and they are the ones who make the bags. So do we control who takes those bags or not? And I want to give an example of famous, you say Kimbo. If you get that can written Kimbo, what is inside it? So as we prosecute this matter, Mr. Speaker, I would say this House should allow the Committee on Agriculture to lay a very conclusive report. We have been with the farmers, we have talked to these people, and Mr. Speaker, the truth shall come out. And so with that, Mr. Speaker, I beg to oppose this motion. And Mr. Speaker, I will say, today it might be the person you are naming, tomorrow it might be you, but be prosecuted with justice. Let us follow. Who is the procurement person? Who is the accounting officer? There are so many people in the chain. So, Mr. Speaker, about whether somebody is ugly or not ugly, uncouth or not uncouth, those are things that we can discuss later. And I beg to oppose, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Martin Owino.